It has been over 11 years since we saw a new Elder Scrolls game, and we're surely going to have to wait a lot longer still for another installment in the Elder Scrolls series. But with that being said, it doesn't stop us as fans to discuss ideas on what we want to see in the Elder Scrolls 6. And what is up guys, and from the Den Men here, and today I'd like to talk to you about the possibility of the Elder Scrolls 6 in High Rock. I'm not saying that it will be the next location we go to, but it is likely that it will play a big part of the next game. If you guys are excited, make sure you hit that like button and comment what you want to see from the Elder Scrolls 6. So without further ado, kick back, grab that bottle of Hunting Brew mead, and let's get right into the video. The first subject I'd like to talk about is the geography of High Rock. Now we have visited High Rock before in an Elder Scrolls game, but I believe it is still likely because the Elder Scrolls Daggerfall came out over 25 years ago, and even though it might give us fans some nostalgia, it wouldn't rule out the province of High Rock entirely. It is one of, if not the most diverse province in Tamriel, and is a very big selling point for the Elder Scrolls 6 to take place here. High Rock is bordered by Skyrim to the east, home of the Nords, and Hammerfell to the south, home of the Redguards. High Rock is home to the Bretons, half man, half mer people. They are adept in the ways of magic, and the land itself is very medieval. There are 5 major regions in High Rock: Glenumbra, Stormhaven, Rivenspire, Northern Bangarai, and Hrothgar. So let's just talk about them real quick. Beginning off, we have Glenumbra, which is the westernmost region of High Rock. It consists mostly of rolling hills and mystical forests. There is, however, a large swamp near the area of Hagfen. It is bordered by Stormhaven to the northeast and Rivenspire across the Kingsguard Mountains to the north. There are 2 large cities in the region of Glenumbra, Daggerfall and Camlorn. Daggerfall is the largest settlement in Glenumbra with over 100,000 people living within the city. The city itself is split up into 4 districts similar to the Imperial City in Cyrodiil. In the north of the city is the Castle Town, to the northwest is the Harbor District, in the south is the Trade District, and towering above all of them to the west would be Castle Daggerfall. Then we have Camlorn, which would be the second largest settlement in Glenumbra behind only Daggerfall. It is located in the Cambrai Hills, which is known for its magical legends and myths, which could give Camlorn a more haunted feeling to the region. I can only imagine what a quest would look like where the locals are talking about a mysterious figure that would show up in the middle of the night and kidnap people, and they would never be seen again. You find out it is actually a vampire cult doing this, and you have to end their tyranny once and for all. The place around the city could give way to a chilling vibe on a scale we've never seen before. Camlorn is also known for its prosperous trade within the Iliac Bay region, which could give us some interesting dialogue options with sailors who would have traveled far and brought home tales of their adventures. Moving forward, we have Stormhaven, which is the centralmost region in High Rock, and it borders all other regions in the province. It consists mostly of forested green hills. The region itself is infested by great storms, which could make the terrain harder to traverse and maybe even dynamic. Imagine a great rainstorm occurs and it leaves the surrounding land swept with mud, and now you move slower within the mud. Dynamic changes like this could give the Elder Scrolls 6 a fresh breath of new air to it. I would love to see them do something like this because it would make the game feel alive and you could see the world around you change. Stormhaven is also home to 2 major cities, the birthplace of Tiber Septim with Alcair Castle and the great trading city of Wayrest. Alcair Castle is actually found within a sub-region of Stormhaven called Alcair. As it was said previously, Alcair Castle is the birthplace of Tiber Septim, so it would be more than likely that we would learn more about Tiber Septim through quest or dialogue with the townsfolk. Then there's Wayrest, which is the most prominent city in Stormhaven, with it being one of the largest cities of commerce in High Rock. In the 4th era, Wayrest was raided by Corsairs and the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary there was destroyed. It would be interesting to see how the city would look after the sacking and see how Wayrest is rebuilt in its stead. Overall, Stormhaven is one of the most fantasy parts of High Rock and has a lot of potential with its weather. Continuing on, we have Rivenspire, which is the northernmost region of High Rock. It is gloomy in design and mostly consists of dry badlands, flinty crags, windswept moors, narrow canyons, and jagged rock formations. If the player were to traverse within the region, it would give the player a whole new level of hardship. With all of the rock formations within the area, and if Bethesda decides on giving the Elder Scrolls 6 dynamic weather, it could have rock avalanches and you would hear large rocks smash to the surface with a loud boom in the distance. This feature would really make you feel like you are there and immerse you into the world even more. Expect the Doomcrag to be a major part of Rivenspire, with it being a massive alien tower that was destroyed in the 2nd era and could have major quest potential as well. Rivenspire also has some interesting features, including the 2 major cities, Shornhelm and Northpoint. Let's keep it going by talking about the capital of Rivenspire, Shornhelm. Known as the Crown City of the North, it is divided into two parts, the lower city and the upper city. The lower contains most of the townspeople and shops. The upper city, on the other hand, is where you will find the nobles and the castle area. This could give way to an interesting conflict of corrupt noblemen holding sway over the king, while the townspeople are left to fend for themselves and finally want to do something about it. This would fit High Rock in general very well because it is such a medieval environment. Shornhelm has been known to be run by a council instead of a king, so it leaves a lot to be desired on what could happen. Our next town in Rivenspire is North Point, which is known for being a harbor village on the Sea of Ghost. North Point resides right next to the border of Skyrim, so I would say it is possible to hear stories from Skyrim when venturing into the city. I mean, I wouldn't put it past Bethesda to sneak in an Easter egg from the Elder Scrolls V for a nod towards the fans. Harbor towns always have a lot of potential because it is never just the townspeople who populate the location. You will find sailors and people just coming in from the boats looking for a new life. You will definitely find some interesting people in the taverns at North Point with some fun quests or dialogue options. I just hope they do the region and cities within right because there is a lot of potential when it comes to Rivenspire. The fourth region in High Rock is Northern Bunkrai and borders both Skyrim and Hammerfell. The diversity between races here could be better than any other region in High Rock. The actual region itself is also very diverse with its features. In the northern part, it is more fertile and has plenty of rolling hills with sprouting trees. The farther south you go, the more mountainous it gets with a more desert-like environment and little green left. The difference in environment will give it a fresher feel than what we saw with Skyrim being snow and mountains. What makes Bunkrai so good as a whole is that it is set in two different provinces, both High Rock and Hammerfell, but is separated by the Bunkrai Pass. This has been used for generations to defend High Rock from Redguard raiders, and a game set in High Rock will likely have a questline where we defend the pass or be involved in some type of invasion from Bunkrai Pass. It is a very interesting location and could even see us traverse into Hammerfell from time to time. I'm not saying that they would use two provinces as a location for Elder Scrolls 6 because they have never done that before, but we could explore parts of Hammerfell if the next game is set in High Rock. To kind of wrap it all up, the main city of Northern Bunkrai is Evermore and has been the seat of power since its beginning in the First Era. If a conflict between Hammerfell and High Rock existed, it would come to a head in the region of Bunkrai, so the quest potential here is limitless. The final main region of High Rock is home to the orcs, the snowy lands of Hrothgar. Set in the Hrothgarian Mountains, the seat of power for the orcs has been the great city of Orsinium, sacked many times and built in different spots around the region of Hrothgar. The ruins of the past Orsiniums would still be there, so the exploration of these locations would be very intriguing to see what we find. The latest sacking of Orsinium saw the relocation of a new one in a location we don't know of just yet, but we suspect on the border between High Rock and Hammerfell in the region of Craglorn. Hrothgar would be steeped in a ton of orc lore and have quests related to them throughout the region, and for our people who chose to be an orc would love to spend their time here. Seeing the way the orc culture works more in depth would be interesting because even though we had orc strongholds in Skyrim, they were not fleshed out as much as a game that has the home of the orcs would be like. So to kind of wrap it all up, I expect Hrothgar to be a very interesting region because it is so much more different than any other in High Rock. We cannot mention a game in High Rock without mentioning the Isle of Balfiera. Located in the Iliac Bay, we have the site of the Adamantine Tower, the oldest known structure in Tamriel itself. It is steeped in a lot of different lore from the Dureni to the Bretons and even the Aedra themselves. It is said that the tower was used to punish Lorcan for tricking the other Aedra into creating Mundus, or the plane that all the Elder Scrolls games takes place. To travel here would have plenty of quests and be very lore heavy. The catacombs underneath the tower would provide exploration that would rival that of Blackreach itself. We have no idea what we would find in the tower because it is said that now all of the tower and the catacombs that lay below it have been fully explored. So basically, a game set in High Rock could not be complete without the addition of the Isle of Balfiera, and could definitely be a part of the main quest if the game was set in this province. Now we need to talk about the creatures of High Rock because from what we can tell, there are a ton of them, and all of them are very different from one another. The region itself has many different creatures that give High Rock a magical feel and very medieval. A good thing to know is that most of the creatures that inhabit the province have not been seen in any other Elder Scrolls game, so that is a major plus as well. I mean, you do still have your normal animals like bears, wolves, deer, and mud crabs, but you also have creatures that are native to this province and are very intriguing. For example, centaurs roam the lands of High Rock and are semi-intelligent humanoids which possess the body of a horse. We haven't seen them in an Elder Scrolls game since Daggerfall, and encountering them could land a great dialogue options, and they are also known to be superb in battle, so expect them to be challenging foes as well. Camels can also be found on the border between High Rock and Hammerfell, but are very rare. I think it would be great if you were able to ride camels so you're not just riding horses all the time. Saber-toothed tigers are also considered to be very rare in High Rock and are a sign of nobility within the province. You can find harpies within the mountainous regions where there are rocky cliffs, and the best way I can describe them is they have feminine features with bird wings. Dragonlings also exist in the province, but don't get them confused with dragons because even though they breathe fire, they're not related at all. Don't venture too far within fens or swamps because you do not want to encounter a hag who will use nature-based magic to subdue and corrupt you. Then there are the tree spirits, also known as Spriggans, which are defenders of nature and will attack you on sight if you try to harm its wildlife. Lurchers are also Spriggans that have been cursed and corrupted by dark magic and can be found throughout the province. Remember those big guys who would launch you with one strong swing? Yeah, well, giants have been known to be seen in the mountain and snowy regions of both High Rock and Skyrim and can be found herding their mammoths. Very similar to giants, ogres are large brutish creatures in nature and known to be very dim-witted humanoids, but that doesn't mean you want to cross their path because you will likely not escape. Giant bats and scorpions can be found inhabiting the region of Rivenspire due to its mountainous and jagged rock formations. Giant snakes, on the other hand, can be found in the shallow swamps of High Rock but are rarely seen on dry land. The Tus Eshatari are found mostly in the region of Hrothgar and carry the valuables of the Orcish people. Again, I would like to see a variety of animals that are able to be ridden, so the Eshatari is definitely an option here. Nereids are mer-like in nature but also have feminine body features. They can mostly be found near water and are known to be adept in water magic, an obscure magic that not many mages have knowledge of. The nymphs of High Rock are very rare, known to be female, however shy they are thought to be one of the most brilliant species in Tamriel. The undead of the province are very expansive and also very diverse. First we have the specters, which are basically ghosts that are classified as undead spirits, and you will no doubt encounter them in this game. The liches are powerful necromancers who are immortal and head large armies of the undead. Then there are the wraiths, who are undead creatures which stalk the graveyards and tombs of High Rock, so it will give the game a more haunting vibe. You also have your basic undead, which include skeletons, mummies, zombies, and of course vampires. As you can see, the undead in High Rock is not lacking, so that also means that we would be able to conjure them, and that is a major plus. The lycanthrope of High Rock probably has the most potential than any other province because of how much there are. If you are able to be one or more of them, then there are actually a lot of options to choose from. First, you have your basic lycanthrope, a werewolf, which are the spawn of Hircine and are the most common that you can find in Tamriel. They can be found during the Companion's questline within Skyrim, and I don't expect them to change that much in the next game. Werebears are also known to inhabit the regions of Skyrim, Solstheim, and High Rock, but not much is known about them. You do, however, encounter one on your trip to Solstheim in the Elder Scrolls V during the Dragonborn DLC. I would like to see them return, but on a bigger scale this time, maybe even being able to play as one. Wereboars are unique to High Rock and Hammerfell and are very rare. The only way one can become a wereboar is to become infected by another wereboar. With the game set in High Rock, you will no doubt be able to experience seeing or even becoming a wereboar with how excluded they are. Our last lycanthrope is basically a myth at best because there are no real accounts of it ever existing. Weresharks are said to roam the seas of Tamriel but may not even be real, even though according to Maik the Liar they do exist, and as we all know, he never lies. If they are real, then it is very possible they make an appearance, with most of High Rock being surrounded by water. The creatures of High Rock are very magical and highly different from one another. It would be very fun to experience High Rock and its unique characters. If the Elder Scrolls 6 is set in this province, then it will no doubt be a good adventure with just the creatures within the region. Quests in the Elder Scrolls universe are the reason we play the games. There have been a number of unique and fun side quests, while there are also the interesting faction storylines. Then there's also the main questline that acts as the driving force within the game. We don't know what the main story would be like if it was set in High Rock, but it would be likely that it has something to do with the Adamantine Tower because of how prominent it is for the province. As for the side quest, a major plot point for the Elder Scrolls games at the moment is the possibility of a second Great War. It has been hinted at multiple times in Skyrim and would likely be a main focus in the next game. With High Rock being out of the way of both Cyrodiil and the Somerset Isles, it doesn't seem that a second Great War would be involved in a game set in High Rock. That is a major negative for the next game set in this province, but it doesn't rule it out completely. There are still plenty of other potential side quests that could fill in the gap that a second Great War would have. There's a wide variety of factions within High Rock that will give it plenty of adventure. This includes your main factions like the Fighters Guild, Thieves Guild, Mages Guild, and Dark Brotherhood. The Fighters Guild do have a presence in High Rock, but it is overshadowed by many factions that could take their place in a game set in the region. So instead of seeing one guild about honor and fighting, we could see multiple ones to choose from. The Thieves Guild also has a small presence in the province, but what makes them so interesting is that the cities within High Rock are dense and heavily populated, so they have a lot of potential here. The Mages Guild, on the other hand, is very prominent from how the Bretons are affinitive in the ways of magic. They have many headquarters within the province and will be the largest faction out of the main ones. I also expect there to be many quests related to magic with how many mages there are within the province. So the Dark Brotherhood is the final main faction, and as I said before, the Sanctuary in Wayrest was destroyed, and as it so happens, that was the final one we know of in High Rock. This leaves Bethesda with two options, either to create the Dark Brotherhood from the ground up, or to have an entirely new faction of assassins we have never seen before. They both have their positives and negatives, because on one hand the Dark Brotherhood is a fan favorite faction, but also having an entirely new faction would create new story options and an entirely new idea for what could happen. I do expect them to return in some way, whether that be a reference or even seeing the destroyed sanctuary for ourselves, but they could take it in whatever way they want. What makes High Rock so good though is the medieval and fantasy aesthetic, and nothing elevates that more than the Night Orders within the province. There are plenty of them out there, and being able to join one of them would give the Elder Scrolls 6 a lot of replayability to it. It would be very interesting if they tied into the main questline, and whichever one you pick would change the outcome of the final mission. It would be like Fallout in that regard, with having a choice on how the story plays out. I would like to see them have a significant role or be fleshed out a lot in a game set in this province. High Rock is surrounded by water, and that gives way to a lot of ships traveling in and out of the harbors in the city. You must be wondering where I'm going with this. Well, it would be interesting to be able to join a pirate or sailor faction, because in all the other Elder Scrolls, water does not play a very big role. But in the next one, they can definitely take it up a notch, with next-gen consoles being well into it and the lack of a seafaring faction in all the other games. Maybe even being able to pilot your own ship would be a cool mechanic that could elevate the game even more. There's a saying in High Rock, find a new hill, become a king. If a game were to ever take place in High Rock again, then I would be baffled if they didn't take what they explored in the Hearthfire DLC a little bit further by being able to become a lord or lady or even something along those lines. This would just be a fun little side thing to do with all the other things that will no doubt be going on in the game, and you would be able to get your own servants, have to protect your own castle, and maybe even being able to declare war on other castles. The possibilities are endless and would be a fun innovation that they could explore. With the emphasis on magic, and if you wanted to play as an evil major necromancer, they could have witch covens the player could join to give a different path to a magical questline. It would be interesting to see the inner workings of a dark cult, and if you wanted to play as that, it would give you options to choose from. Vampires and werewolves have always been a major part of an Elder Scrolls game because they give you a new way to play, but we haven't seen a direct faction we could join for them except in the Dawnguard DLC. It would be good to see them more fleshed out as a faction, to where if you become them, then you would do quests and have their own dedicated storyline. I feel like this is a must with how many lycanthropes there are, and vampires will really fill that haunting vibe if you could join them. With the game set in High Rock and the region of Hrothgar being the home place of the orcs, you would be able to interact with these orc clans and give a different feel compared to the rest of High Rock. So in my opinion, it would be great if they add an orc faction that you could help or maybe even battle. I would definitely like to see the orcs more fleshed out and them actually having their own region all to themselves. Bethesda certainly has the opportunity to do that. Skyrim saw the addition of dragons in a big way, and I would like to see them return in some fashion. It would be cool if there was one dragon left and it is a secret boss, or there is a quest to travel into the mountains to fight a dangerous monster. Later you find out it is a dragon who nested itself in the mountain. No doubt some dragons would have fled from Skyrim after the defeat of Alduin, and what is right next to Skyrim? High Rock. When it comes to Skyrim, it is a lot like Game of Thrones, so I'm sure there will be plenty of conspiracies or plots to assassinate a king or overthrow a government. It is sure to be in the game with how many kings, lords, and other noblemen there are within the province. It would be the perfect place for a political faction where you can influence the status in High Rock in some type of way. Same way they had Thanes in Skyrim, it would be more fleshed out in a game set in High Rock. The noblemen of the province will definitely be a major part of the game and have a lot of influence on the world. So if you are involved in some way to make changes to the world around you, it will feel that much more real. DLC for games has a lot to do with the longevity for that game, and it is no difference for the Elder Scrolls 6. There are a lot of potential locations and storylines Bethesda could take the DLC to. First on the list is the Isle of Bethany. Located within the Iliac Bay, this island is part of High Rock and ruled over by the city of Daggerfall. They can take a storyline on the island any way they want, like they did with the Dragonborn DLC on Solstheim. There is a lot of potential, especially with the past that is on Bethany with the War of Bethany between the people of Hammerfell and High Rock. They could continue the conflict between the two provinces and make it a major plot point if they decide to make it post-launch content. I would also like to see them flesh out wereboars more, especially since they are only found in High Rock and Hammerfell. I would say it would be similar to the Blood Moon DLC from Morrowind because it has something to do with lycanthropes, but honestly we don't know until we get it. However, a DLC that spices up lycanthropes or makes them better would be just better for gameplay moving on through playthroughs. Another possible location would be Stros Mackay, an island controlled by the natives of Hammerfell or the Red Guards. With the game set in High Rock, it would give the game even more diversity if you set a DLC in a location that the main inhabitants wouldn't be Breton. It would give the game a different feel to it, seeing how Stros Mackay is a more desert environment compared to High Rock, which is more fertile lands and rolling hills. You would be able to encounter creatures here that you wouldn't see in the main province as well. With a DLC set in Stros Mackay, you would see the opposite of what High Rock is. It would be the same thing that Solstheim did to Skyrim by giving it plenty of diversity and exploring an entirely different culture. Quests are a staple to every Elder Scrolls game, so the fact that High Rock has a lot of potential with fun and interesting quests are a major plus for the next game to be set here. The final topic I want to talk about is the likelihood of the Elder Scrolls 6 actually set in High Rock. I definitely think that there's a chance that it could take place in this province. The fact is that people tend to draw themselves to more human in nature games. High Rock has the Bretons as the main race, and they are one of the human races of Tamriel. I would like to say that I do think that one location is not only better but more likely than High Rock, but there is always a chance though. You never know what Bethesda has up their sleeve, whether that be a combination of two provinces or set in an entirely different location that we have never seen before. From the teaser trailer that was shown off at E3 in 2018, it does seem that Hammerfell is the more likely choice, but I want to hear what you guys have to say, so make sure you leave a comment on which province you want to see more. Elder Scrolls 6 is still a long way from release. We still have Bethesda's next game Starfield to look forward to, but we can always speculate on what to expect as fans. But that is all for me now though, guys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment any videos you want to see in the future, and I'll see you all next time.